on here.
Hey, I got you, Gerard.
Okay,
I'm
okay.
sorry. They had me on mute. Too many things going on at one time. Always great to be on SuperTalk.
Yes, sir. No problem. Thanks for joining us. So I'm just sitting here watching images of what's going on down at the border. I'm just going to jump right into that, if that's okay, sir. But, I was always told that the first thing you have to do to address and solve a problem is acknowledge that you have a problem. And it appears right now our president and the Democrats refuse to acknowledge we have a problem.
They are absolutely tone deaf to it. They don't acknowledge the problem. And if you ask the migrants why they're coming across, and they said because President Biden said come across.
Yeah.
So they've been very clear about why they're coming. They're making no attempt to stop them. As a matter of fact, they're doing the opposite. We're over. This is such a crisis on the border. Is number one, it's a humanitarian crisis. There were cages 4 years ago, but now they're not cages, and they're putting more people than they can hold. They're letting them out on catch and release. And, you have to get a COVID negative test or be vaccinated to come back into the United States via air travel, but they're not even testing the folks, and they're letting them loose into our communities to spread.
It's just crazy. And you're right, Congressman, the double standard there. And there are reports suggesting that the infection rate of those crossing over is as high as 25%. 25%.
Exactly, and they're not testing them, and then they're putting them out into the communities and to spread it more and more. And and many of them are younger, and they're not in the they're not in the at risk to die category, but they can still spread COVID. And they just want it both ways. And and right now up here today, we're voting on an amnesty bill. So we're not focusing on the border crisis and then stopping the flow of illegal people coming in, but we're focusing on making them legal when they do so.
So I saw that. I think would stand to create a path to citizenship for about 4 million Americans. Is that true? 4 million immigrants,
sure
I should say.
It is a lot. I'm not in the details of it right now. I just know it's granting amnesty and citizenship, and that's just not the right way to go about this.
Yeah, and so, Congressman, whenever I've talked to Congressman Guest, he always talks about how the Republicans, certainly in the House, are just kind of not involved in the discussions. They're just sort of barred from any of the discourse. Is that still the case? Is there any sign or any interest whatsoever from the Speaker, from the committee chair, to try to engage more with what is almost half of the House? The margin there is not that big. 5-6 votes.
But it's 5 now. There, of course, we need to talk about them trying to unseat a Republican who was duly elected with a certificate of election, which seemed to be a problem just a few months ago. But now they're trying to unseat someone. But no, there's no dialogue between the Speaker and anyone else. These bills aren't even going through committee. It's worse than just the Republicans being shut out. It is Nancy Pelosi's wish list. It's not going through committees. There are no amendments allowed, and it comes to the floor, and you vote on what it is, and there is no outreach to anyone for input. It is her or her staff's ideas, and like I said, it's not even going through the committee process.
Golly. That's just mind-boggling when you think about it, especially when we were hammered over a year and a half by Biden and his surrogates that we have to elect Joe Biden to instill unity and bipartisanship and all that. We've had nothing of the sort in 60 days.
We hadn't even had a press conference. I think he's going to do one day 56 finally.
Yep.
And I'm sure that it'll be softball questions, but no, there's no effort for unity. There's a lot of talk about that, but when it comes down to it on the House side, and I think it's the same on the Senate, the Speaker is coming up with her bills to spend $4 trillion on infrastructure, $2 trillion on COVID relief that is not COVID relief.
Right.
It's a Pelosi bailout plan for things that don't even deal with COVID, and there is no input even from the committees for the most part.
And then, of course, the idea of tax cuts, that's on the, tax increases, that's on the table. And now we're seeing some softening over there in the Senate, even from Joe Biden, about eliminating the filibuster. And you knew that was coming. They'll just say, well, those obstructionist Republicans won't let anything through, and this is what we got to do. So the heck with you. We got basically half the House, half of the Senate, so half of the legislative body, if you will, and we're just going to govern with that half.
Exactly, and they changed the rules. I mean, in the House, I mean, we're sitting here looking at them changing rules right now on Mariette Miller Meeks from Iowa. She was duly elected, certified, and now they changed the rules. The burden of proof is shifted to her to prove that she won, rather than Hart, who bypassed the court system in Iowa, by the way, and went straight to the partisan speaker to try to get this election stolen. And they changed the rules. I mean, they do not want any input, and if you find a way to get input, they change the rules to take away that way, just like they've taken away our motion to recommit.
So ridiculous. Now, Congressman, you've recently been selected to serve on the House Intelligence Committee, and that's also known by the House Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence, and then the House Budget Committee. These are pretty high-profile committees. So first, sir, congratulations on that. But what's going on there? What do you hope to get done? Based on what you just told us, you're not even really having meaningful committee meetings.
Well, there's some that still do. Like, we're still working on the National Defense Authorization Act. And let me first say, it is a huge honor to be appointed. I mean, that's one of those committees that's high priority and everybody wants to get on.
Sure.
Of course, you can't ever talk about what you do in there. So it's kind of a double-edged sword. Everybody wants to get on it, but there's not a whole lot you can talk about that you do there. But it does. It's the first line of defense for this nation.
Sure.
And, of course, I've always been a defense-oriented guy. So we'll continue to work on the things that we can influence, but a lot of the other stuff like this spending bills and everything, we just have zero influence right now.
And as you said, Congressman, being a veteran of the military and serving proudly our nation, are you pleased with what you're seeing coming out of the Pentagon? Does it not seem like that to some extent there's a move to dilute the standards, if you will, in our military, just to be more accommodating to maybe people who can't achieve those standards and can't meet those requirements?
Well, I think there's a lot of talk and a lot of policies, and I think there's a big push for diversity, which I support. I think we need that. I think it makes a more effective force. But that being said, I have not seen any results so far that show that we've degraded the ability or whatever. Now, there's talk about those things, and there's you'll have talking heads talk about what they think this is going to do. But I can tell you from firsthand experience, I've not seen a degradation of ability. So far, and I hope that it will stay that way. And I'm also really concerned. You had 50 House Democrats send a letter asking to cut defense by 10% across the board. Without any reasoning whatsoever, other than we just want to cut, so we can spend more on social programs.
Yeah, and that's right on the heels of President Trump, who tried to straighten out the mess left by Barack Obama, and it did increase to some degree spending on the military, but I think over the 4 years it was $150 billion or so. It wasn't really kind of pales in comparison when you think about the amount of money. We're just flying all over the place with so-called stimulus relief. But the first and foremost constitutional obligation of our federal government is to protect the nation.
It is, and if you'll remember when President Trump took office, we had planes falling out of the sky for maintenance issues, ships crashing into each other, soldiers dying in tank rollovers from lack of training, and lots of other things. And now we had cleared up the majority of that and got us back on the right track where we're competing with China and Russia, our peers in those areas, and now it looks like. Hopefully, we won't go back on the path where we're not prepared anymore, because you don't fix it overnight. Yeah. It took us 4 years to get back to even, and now we don't want